Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello students, hope you guys are fine. This is Dr. Maria Anwar. Today we're going to discuss about physiology of auditory system. I'm going to switch on the subtitles, but keep in mind the subtitles are self-generated, so there might be some errors or mistakes. I want you guys to concentrate on my voice and the text too. The physiology of the auditory system. As you guys know, our ear houses two senses. One is the hearing and other is the equilibrium. In this section we will concentrate on the hearing. The receptors which are present in the ear are known as mechanoreceptor. Now, looking at the gross anatomy of the ear, we divide it into the three parts: outer ear, middle ear and inner ear. Outer ear, it starts from the exterior of the ear, we call pinna, to the auditory canal, and then it ends at the tympanic membrane. The main function of the auditory ear is to collect the voice from the different directions, and it actually converges all those voices into one pathway which calls auditory canal. And then this voice they strike with the sound waves, they strike with the tympanic membrane. Then we have the middle ear. Middle ear, it has three ossicles: malleus, incus and stapes. Here you can see it. There are also muscles attached with them. For example, stapedius muscle, which is attached to the stapes, and the tensor tympani muscle. There is a tube which is present in the middle ear, is known as the eustachian tube. Then we have the inner ear. Inner ear, basically it starts from the stapes face plate. It starts from the oval window. This portion is known as the coiled portion. It is known as the cochlea. Though it also has the vestibular apparatus, but right now, as we are only concerned with the hearing, we are not going to discuss the equilibrium. So our main emphasis will be on the cochlea. The cochlea, it has two types of fluid in its side. One is the endolymph and other is known as the perilymph. We will discuss its function later on. Now, the eustachian tube, which is present in the middle ear cavity, its primary function is to ventilate the middle ear space. So when there is a proper ventilation, so it helps ensures pressure to remain same as the environmental air pressure, and it also allows for equalizing of pressure during yawning or swallowing. Okay, now major function of the middle ear. The major function of the middle ear is the impedance matching. What is impedance matching? First we read its definition, then I'll explain it to you. The impedance matching, it is basically a function of middle ear in which it matches relatively low impedance airborne sounds to the higher impedance fluid of the inner ear. The word impedance in this context, its meaning is medium's resistance to movement. It means how much resistance a medium gives to the movement of the sound waves. Now coming back to the picture, here you can see all the sound waves, all the voice which we hear, they first travel through the air. As you know, we speak, it enters into the external ear, into the auditory canal, and it strikes to the tympanic membrane, then it crosses the middle ear, that wave, and then it reaches to the inner ear. I have explained you already, the inner ear actually has two types of fluid. One is the endolymph and other is the perilymph. Now whenever that sound wave, it enters from the air to the fluid, obviously the fluid has more inertia, more viscosity, so it gives more resistance to the flow or to the intensity of the sound wave. So what happens, as you know, in air the sound intensity will be more, but when it will reach to the inner ear, which is having fluid, its intensity or its force will decrease. So what does a middle ear does? It basically overcomes the resistance which is provided by the inner ear fluid. So for example, if middle ear is not working, it is not doing its job, what will happen? A voice of some certain intensity or some certain force, it passes easily through the air in the external ear and then in the middle ear, but when it reaches to the inner ear, the inner ear fluid will give so much resistance to the flow or to the force of that voice that it will damp to the point that it will not activate the mechanoreceptors which are present in the inner ear, and when mechanoreceptors won't be stimulated, the nerve impulse or signals won't be passed to the brain and we won't be able to understand the voice. So this is basically the major function of the middle ear. It does the impedance matching. So how that impedance matching is done? Tympanic membrane and ossicular system. Ossicular system, which I've just described, consists of three bones, malleus, incus and stapes. So these two structures, they basically provide the impedance matching so that the resistance which is provided by the fluid does not hinder the movement of the sound wave. There are two methods by which the impedance matching work. Number one is the difference in the surface area. Here you can see the surface area of the tympanic membrane is 55 millimeter square, while that of stapes is only 3.2 millimeter square. It's such a huge difference. It is a difference of 17 times, which means the surface area of tympanic membrane is 17 times greater as compared to the surface area of the stapes. Now, how is it beneficial? How does it do the impedance matching? Let me show you a picture first. Consider this one is your tympanic membrane and this one is the stapes foot plate. Now I give you an example. For example, this is a brick wall, a wall which is made up of a brick, a bigger wall or a huge structure. If I punch on that wall with 50 Newton force, say, what will happen to that wall? I guess nothing will happen. The wall will absorb all that force and that's it. It will stay there. It won't move. Now, for example, this stapes foot plate, it is basically a plastic bottle which is empty. Now I strike this small plastic bottle with that same force, which was 50 Newton. What will happen to the plastic bottle? Boom, it will go away. So as you can see, the force was same, but on a brick wall by 50 Newton force did nothing. But on a small plastic bottle, it did marvelous stuff. It actually hit it so hard that it flew somewhere else. So this is what happens. Now coming back to the original structures, consider this is your tympanic membrane. Its surface area is 55 millimeter square, while its surface area is only 3.2 millimeter square. So what happens? It takes the sound waves from different directions because it has a large surface area. So it absorbs those sound waves from different directions and then it converges those sound waves into very smaller area, which is only 3.2 millimeter square. So what will happen? Force was same. Force was here same. Force was here same. But here, when the force, this much force will be converged into a very small area, so what will happen? It will be amplified. Its force will increase. So when this increased force then will go to the oval window and then into the fluid of the cochlea. It will be easy for it to pass through the fluid of the cochlea because it will overcome the impedance, overcome the resistance which was provided by the fluid. Now coming back to the equation, here you can see the difference in the surface area of the tympanic membrane and the stapes. It actually increases the force of the sound waves to 17 times. So this is the one mechanism how impedance matching work. Now there is another mechanism. This mechanism is basically tells about the amplitude of movement. Here you can see amplitude of movement of stapes faceplate is 3, while that of the malleus handle is 4. So though there is no drastic difference, but yes, there is a difference. The stapes faceplate amplitude is relatively less as compared to that of malleus handle. So how is it beneficial? For example, this is the let's see, this is the stapes faceplate. By amplitude of movement, I mean displacement, the distance covered by it, the movement covered by it. Whenever there will be a sound wave, it will vibrate like that. But keep in mind, its vibration, they will not cross so much distance. Its amplitude or its displacement or its movement will less as compared to the handle of the malleus. So what will happen, instead of wasting all that energy in movement, in distance or in amplitude, it will converge all that energy into the cochlear fluid through the oval window, while as compared to that the malleus won't be doing the same. So this is way it will actually increase the force of sound wave. Here you can see, though the difference is not so much, but yes, it increases the force up to 1.3 times. By combining these two forces, we get 22 times increase in the force. So we put it that way, 22 times as much total force is exerted on the fluid of the cochlea as is exerted by the sound waves against the tympanic membrane. It's just like the force on the tympanic membrane was unit 1, while force on the oval window cochlea is unit 22. So here you can see that this is the marvelous function of the middle ear, that just with the arrangement and the difference in the size of the ossicular system, it basically help increase the force of the sound wave on the cochlea. So in this way it will match the resistance, it will match the impedance which was provided by the fluids of the cochlea. Hope you guys understand this concept. There is again another picture which is explaining the surface area difference of the tympanic membrane and that of the stapes footplate. Here you can see the amplitude difference, as you can see in the pinna, auditory canal and tympanic membrane, and then when it enters into the middle ear, its amplitude increases, and in the inner ear its amplitude is way more as compared to that in the outer ear, though it decreases later on in the inner ear, but we will discuss it later. Why does it happen? Okay, till you guys concentrate on the previous concept, take a break, take 1 minute break. You can pause my video. Okay, then we move to the next concept, which is the attenuation reflex. What is attenuation reflex? Attenuation reflex, also known as the tympanic reflex or middle ear reflex or acoustic reflex. What does it reflex do? First we read the definition, then I will explain it to you. When loud sounds are transmitted through the ossicular system and from there into the central nervous system, a reflex occurs after a latent period of 40 to 80 milliseconds to cause contractions of stapedius muscle and to lesser extent the tensor tympani muscle. So what is the benefit of the attenuation reflex? First let me show you the picture. Now this is the stapedius and this is the malleus and this is the tympanic membrane. Now there is a muscle which is attached to the stapedius and there is a muscle which is attached to the tympanic membrane. The one which is attached to the stapes is known as the stapedius, and that which is attached to the tympanic membrane is known as the tensor tympani. Now whenever a loud sound comes, for example a loud sound comes from the external auditory canal, then it passes through it and enters into the cochlea, and then there are mechanoreceptors in the cochlea which identify the loud sounds, and then your CNS basically detects that loud sounds. So as you know, in a reflex arc the CNS gives back signal through two nerves. One is the nerve, the stapedius nerve, which is basically a branch of the facial nerve, and other through the trigeminal nerve. The trigeminal nerve provides to the tensor tympani muscle. So basically what happens, the stapedius muscle, it is get activated as it is innervated by the nerve. It will pull the stapes backward, while on the other hand the tensor tympani muscle, it will pull it towards the inside. Here I have another picture for you to explain it. Here you can see, though this is not exact picture, it is some kind of a mechanical picture, but yes, you can see this one is the stapedius muscle. Whenever the reflex comes back from the nerves which are coming from the central nervous system, the stapes is basically, when the stapedius muscle contracts, the stapes, it is pushed backward, while that of the tensor tympani muscle, it basically move the malleus and the tympanic membrane towards the inner side. So what will happen? Now there will be a rigidity in the bones or in the ossicles. Why? Because both are moving towards each other. There will be a convergence, so there will be a rigidity of the ossicular system. So whenever the air sound or voice will come, normally the voice strikes with the tympanic membrane, and then these are vibrated, and then it is traveled to the oval window here. So whenever there is a rigidity of this system, there will be difficulty for the voices to actually vibrate these ossicles. When the voices won't be able, or the sound waves won't be able to vibrate these ossicles, so there will be a less vibrations or less sound waves will be traveled through the oval windows to the inner ear. So in this way, whenever there is a loud sound, at first the loud sound, it goes through this pathway to the oval window to the CNS, but then after a latent period of 40 to 60 seconds, some book says 40 to 100 milliseconds, the nerve impulses, they innervate the stapedius muscle and the tensor tympani muscles. So it will cause the rigidity of this system. So after the latent period, the loud voices or the low frequency voices won't be able, or low frequency sound waves won't be able to pass through this ossicular system, because they won't be able to vibrate that ossicular system. Why? Because it is stiff, because it is rigid, it is difficult to show displacement or the movement. So this reflex is known as the attenuation reflex. Here is the explanation of attenuation reflex. It occurs after 40 to 80 milliseconds latent period. Why we need latent period? Because first impulse will go to the central nervous system, then it will come back to those nerves and the muscles, and it will cause a contraction of the muscle, which will cause the rigidity of the ossicular system. Now keep in mind, in humans, it is only stapes or stapedius muscle which is basically moved towards outside. The tensor tympani muscle in the humans, it does not have a greater role in attenuation reflex, but those in animals, the tensor tympani muscle has a very important role. Another point is that whenever this reflex occur, CNS gives signal to both of the ears. No matter the sound is coming from towards the right ear or it's coming towards the left ear, whenever the CNS gets stimulated, it gives signals to both of the ear. So if one stapedius muscle is contracting, the other stapedius muscle of the opposite ear is also contracting. Now whenever the contraction of these two muscles occur, it basically reduces the ossicular conduction of the low frequency sound. Now again I go back to the definition. I hope you guys will understand it this time. When loud sounds are transmitted through the ossicular system and from there into the central nervous system, a reflex occurs after a latent period of only 40 to 80 milliseconds to cause contractions of two muscles, and then it causes the rigidity of the ossicular system. Whenever there is rigidity, it will be difficulty for the sound waves to pass through this system. So why is it beneficial? Why do we need attenuation or acoustic reflex? Number one is, it basically prevents damage to the cochlea from the loud sounds. Now imagine if these loud sounds are not masked, the cochlea will be exposed to the very loud sounds. Eventually it will damage it is mechanoreceptors. If mechanoreceptors are damaged, they won't be able to work properly and you will be having some temporary hearing loss. Secondly, it actually attenuates or masks all low frequency environmental sounds and allow person to concentrate on sound above 1000 hertz. And thirdly, it reduces the sound, the person's own sound which is produced during vocalization or chewing. I hope you guys have noticed whenever we are talking to each other, our main concern or our concentration is on someone else's sound while our own sound has been masked. So all this is due to the attenuation reflex. And there is a history associated with it. During World War II, there were some anti-aircrafts which used to produce pre-firing loud noises. So why these pre-firing loud noises were made? Because there is a latent period of 40 to 80 milliseconds. Whenever the soldiers, they used to hear those pre-firing loud noises which were made artificially, so they were used, the reflex was started, and then after 40 to 80 milliseconds the attenuation reflex gets started. Now after 40 to 80 milliseconds, or usually 1 second of course, the original firing it started. So they were already accustomed to the loud noises, their attenuation or acoustic reflex was already activated. So that's how the attenuation reflex is helpful. Hope you guys understand this lecture. If there are any problems, you guys can text me or you can email me. Thank you.